Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today, I have some stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start today, I just want to acknowledge some of the comments that I've been getting on my videos and episodes recently. The ones saying, "Wow, why are you on camera?" Or the couple of people that actually messaged me directly and said that they were unsubscribing because they had to see my face before the stories. Well, I want to say there's a little bit of changes going on at YouTube right now, and they're cracking down on narration channels that use AI. Well, I'm obviously not an AI, right? So I'm putting myself in the beginning of these videos to make it perfectly clear to YouTube that I'm not an AI, I'm a real person, and they need to leave me alone. So those of you who are commenting saying you don't want to see me in the videos, I put chapters in them. You can go down below and click ahead past where you see me and get directly into the stories. Okay? I'm doing this to save my channel. It needs to be done, and I'm sorry if you don't want to see this gorgeous face. Okay? With that out of the way, on to the stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from El Firo. Don't want to pay me for being on call? Okay, I won't be. Hey there, just wanted to share my story of malicious compliance. It's been a few years, but I'm still proud of it. I worked in IT at a medium-sized company. Our department had around 20 people, and each area had 2 specialists. For example, we had 2 people for servers and databases, and I was one of the 2 responsible for networks and firewalls. Due to laws in our country, no one could be forced to be on call 24/7. However, the company needed people to be available around the clock, so they offered a workaround, a gentleman's agreement. We were each paid around 500 euros per month to be on call, but with relaxed expectations. We didn't need to answer immediately, just return calls within a reasonable time frame, and we weren't expected to jump into action right away. Since calls were rare, maybe 2 or 3 per team per year, it was easy money for just a little mental burden. The problem: I was the new guy. I worked there for a couple years, and for some reason, my boss left me out of the on-call rotation and the 500 euro monthly bonus. At first, I didn't mind. I wasn't experienced enough to help quickly, and I wasn't being called anyway. But after 2 years, my upper manager said, right in front of other colleagues and my direct boss, "If there's a problem, we'll just call him," referring to me when my partner was on vacation or sick leave. The first incident. Naturally, I was pissed. And wouldn't you know it, soon after, there was a major system issue, and the whole department was needed. Instead of calling me himself, the upper manager had another colleague make the call. I answered, but I refused to help. It was hard to say no, knowing it would cause extra work for others, but I stood firm. The solution. After being put in such a position, I decided to take matters into my own hands. If they didn't want me officially on call, then they wouldn't be able to call me at all. I changed my mobile number and gave the new one only to my direct partner, who agreed with me that the situation was unfair. He even said he'd pretend to not have my number if asked. Everyone knew I was angry, and they respected my stance. I unplugged my home phone, which I didn't use anyway, and gave HR my parents' number. I told my parents only to contact me if it was an emergency, not for anything just work-related. Then I waited. The crash and aftermath. Eventually, my moment came. My colleague was on vacation overseas, and I had a relaxing weekend. On Monday, I came into work to find chaos. Everything had crashed. The firewall, the main network gateway, had a hardware issue with one of the interfaces constantly dropping in and out. Only my colleague and I had login access to fix it. With neither of us reachable, the company had to call in external support, which cost them the entire weekend to resolve. As a result, some critical calculations didn't run on time. I was immediately called into my boss's office, not the upper manager of course. He told me I was being added to the on-call rotation, effective immediately. HR and upper management paperwork would follow. He just needed me reachable before I left the building that day. So I handed over my new number. From that day forward, I was never left out again. Bonus, other departments were always bitter about our easy money for on-call duty. I was the only one who openly said I'd give up the extra pay if I could just have my personal freedom back. Eventually, I did exactly that. I left the company for a 9-to-5 job. No more worrying that my phone might ring at any moment. The extra €3,000 a year might sound appealing, but to me, it wasn't worth the constant mental load. I hope you enjoyed my malicious compliance. Take care. Okay, I really agree with OP on this one at the end because when you are on call, it does take a mental toll on you completely. When I was doing the tow truck job, we worked 48 or 72-hour shifts. So you'd get to come home and sleep, maybe for a couple hours, until your tablet went off and you'd be expected to jump up right away and get back out on the truck and go pick up a car. Or rescue somebody who needed to get into their car because they locked themselves out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Dumbasses. It even sounds like OP's situation was a little bit easier than the one that I was in because they had a time frame to call back within and respond to the issue. For me, it was instant. Tablet goes off and you rush out the door to get to that job. OP said in a comment down below that they would go to a movie, check their phone before the movie, and check their phone after the movie. If I'd done that, I would have been fired. Anyway, I totally turned the comments in this one to completely about me and not about OP, so let's just move on from this one. This story comes to us from Brittany Rousba. He came for a refund, so I gave him one. Years ago, when 2-year cell phone contracts were still a thing, and you had to pay per text message, I worked at a Sprint store in a busy area in Michigan. We weren't a corporate store, which meant we didn't have access to billing or refunds. We were more there for repairs and sales. One day, this man comes in fuming about being charged 20 cents for a text that allegedly Sprint had sent. Probably a bill reminder, but I don't believe you were charged for text from the company. Anywho, I explained to the man that we aren't a corporate store, so I wouldn't even be able to access the bill to refund. And that was just unacceptable, and he starts screaming. Starts drilling into me about how I'm just a dumb kid, and people my age may love to text, but he's never going to, and how it's unfair he has to pay this charge. I had just went to the corner store for a snack and paid cash, and I just threw my change in my pocket. I reached into my pocket, smiled at him, and pulled out a quarter. I said, "Here you go, with interest." I felt like a goddess. It was so petty and in his face, priceless. This isn't the point. He slammed the quarter down and left. I hope he's having the day he deserves. Does anybody else here feel like OP missed a completely obvious opportunity? Actually, then again, maybe OP's too young to remember this one. But if you're gonna flip a quarter over to somebody who's older, you tell them, "Here's a quarter, call someone who cares." It's a sad realization moment for me that there are people out there that probably don't know what a payphone is. Oh no. This story comes to us from Downtown Physics 8853, Time Clock Compliance. I work at a manufacturing company. The closest time clock to the employee parking lot is down in the machine shop. And every day, about 24 people can be seen standing around the clock, waiting for it to click over to 3:30, and then they can punch out. But about a year ago, we got a new general manager. After she had been there for a couple months, she decided that this should not be allowed, and a notice was posted stating that people may not congregate around the time clock anymore. At about the same time, there was a corporate-wide exercise campaign based around the Olympics, and many people downloaded an exercise app that tracked their daily steps, along with other things, for possible prizes and locational honors. Now, the downstairs machine shop is a large, open, roughly square space with a marked aisle running around the periphery of the floor. So when the time clock edict came around, people still headed to the clock, but instead spent the time getting their daily steps in. By the end of the week, we had about 30 people spending the last 5 to 10 minutes of the shift circumambulating clockwise around the entire machining department, checking the clock each time they passed. After the GM saw this spectacle one day, I guess it reminded her too much of that scene in Midnight Express, and she reversed the clock edict. Funny thing though, people still kept coming down to get their steps in for a few weeks afterward until the contest was over. I want to say thank you to OP for teaching me a new word today, circumambulate, and I was trying to decide how I'd be able to use that in a sentence, but I don't know, I kind of feel like I'd be walking in circles before I'd get the chance to use it. I love how OP and the other coworkers made their own version of musical chairs here, like office musical chairs, where they're going round and round and round, and the person who wins is the one who passes the time clock right when the time switches over. This story comes to us from DeBlack123. Company has an asinine travel policy, cost them extra. A few months ago, I had to travel for work. Some cost-saving measures had been implemented recently, and I was required to have a funding letter from the financial department so they could allocate funds appropriately, even though my travel was authorized by my supervisor and required for the company business. Okay, I'll jump through this hoop, whatever. I get a funding letter and travel a couple hours to my home away from home. Halfway through my trip, my work schedule opens up. I have a few days off, but I know I'll be working more the following week. Since I'm only a few hours from home, I decide to check out of my hotel, drive home to spend the weekend with my family, then drive back the following week when I actually have work to do. Saves the company paying a few days for a hotel room and per diem. I get time with my family. Win-win, right? Wrong. When I submit my travel claim to financial, it counts as 2 separate trips. The problem is, I have one funding letter, which covers the dates of my travel, but doesn't cover 2 trips, even though both trips are inside the travel window in the funding letter. This blows up and takes about a month and a half to get sorted out, during which time I had to pay off my company credit card for the travel expenses incurred using my own funds. Eventually, the money was all properly allocated and I got reimbursed for my interest-free loan to the company, but I learned my lesson. Another trip comes up and I am issued one funding letter. I drive up again and work for a few days. Sure enough, my schedule opens up and I have some days off. This time, instead of checking out of my hotel, I just leave, drive home, and now I'm sitting on my couch typing this while the company pays my per diem and pays for an empty hotel room. Pretty sure the bean counters will get a raise for their fine work. Cheers to them. OP, another option you have for this one is to pack up your family and take them with you. Let them spend the week in that hotel room, enjoying room service and whatever else you can get away with charging back to the company. I mean, if they really want to spend the money for you to have a hotel room that whole time when you could be sleeping at home, you might as well be using the room with your family and enjoying your time together, right? This story comes to us from Studham, second-class consulting engineer. Years ago, I worked as a consulting engineer at this company with a very tightwad CEO with multiple sticks up his butt. Everyone else was super nice. I engineered a machine that shipped to the Far East and was asked to go on-site to start up the system. This was in the Northeast in February. I parked on an off-site parking lot to save my client the expense of parking at the airport and flew out on a cold, clear day and landed at my destination many hours later. I spent 2+ weeks working long hours to start up this machine. So many hours that I felt bad for my client and decided that I would not charge overtime. Fast forward to my departure, I asked for limo service home because the car was frozen solid and I'd flown some 20+ hours and was severely sleep deprived. Nope, only full-time employees get limo service. Consulting engineers have to drive themselves, decreed the CEO. I decided to charge full overtime to the letter for every hour over 8, especially the all-nighter I pulled while there. It was the most expensive $80 limo ride he never paid for. Okay, here's my advice to everybody out there, and whether you follow it or not is up to you, but you need to know your worth. You also need to know that you don't owe a company any of your time that isn't being compensated. So when OP said that they had so many hours they felt bad for the client and decided they would not charge overtime, what the heck are you doing? Dude, you're just a number to them anyway. You need to charge them that overtime every single time. You're worth it. Your time is worth it. It's the one thing we can never get back is more time. Just remember, if you don't value your time yourself, then your company never will. This story comes to us from Wenner Dogred. Important calculation due? Sorry, no work from home allowed. I am currently in my malicious compliance phase at work right now. I got ripped a new one last week because I needed to work from home in order to get some urgent stuff done for a conference I needed to attend the following week. I was explicitly told that I could not work from home without approval, and I was told that I signed a policy about it. I responded that my job requires me to work from home all the time, to which they replied, "You signed the policy." So now, after I leave the office, I turn off my work-issued cell phone and never look at it on the weekends. I am a salaried employee, but I'm not going to beg my employer to allow me to work from home. This weekend, I got a call on my personal cell from one of the other managers about approving some billing rates that were due. I told her that I wasn't allowed to work from home, and I will get to it on Monday whenever I have the opportunity. Everything will be late, but I signed the policy. It literally would have cost them nothing to just let me do my darn job. I already get paid a fixed rate, but if they want to play stupid games, they can win stupid prizes. OP added an edit and an update down below. Let's start with the edit. It says, so a number of comments asking about why I would even bother to work from home after hours. Here is my take. My employer is not paying me to sit in an office for 40 hours a week. They're paying me to do a relatively specialized job. Sometimes I do 30 hours a week, sometimes 40, sometimes more, whatever it takes to do the job. It has been extremely flexible for me in the past and has allowed me to balance family, work, and a few volunteer activities. This isn't really an anti-work thing, more of an anti-this particular person on a power trip. OP's update below the edit says, Monday came and went and not a peep from anyone about the rates getting out. Fixed a couple of bugs, but I think the other manager edited the PDF reports to get them out the door. Also, the deadline for it was pushed back a week, so everyone survived, but I have made some changes. Change number 1, I am no longer taking my work cell home with me. It is freeing and anxiety inducing at the same time after doing so for so long. Change number 2, I have informed any staff that may need to contact me that I won't be doing anything work-related once I walk out of the office. Change number 3, I am updating my resume today. It's time to leave. Thanks to everyone for their feedback. Wish you all the best. What I got out of this one was that OP pushed back, decided not to work from home, and everything was still just fine at work. So OP had been putting in extra time for this company, working from home when they really didn't need to. OP, I'm glad you were able to make that change and completely unplug from work when you walk out the door of the workplace. It's a wonderful thing to walk away and just go, hey, I'm done. By the way, don't get a life in social media because you can never walk away. Alright, on that note, I think we'll end this one here. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to follow us on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.